Home, the one place where one is supposed to feel safest. But what if something happens to the world and you need to share your home with others? What's worse, what happens if some of those others are not who they say they are? This serves as the main plot point of No, I'm Not a Human. Originally released back in 2024 as part of the Violent Horror Stories anthology as a demo of sorts, the game had another demo released earlier in 2025 before finally getting a full release. The game is a first-person psychological horror with point-and-click elements. In No, I'm Not a Human, you play as a man who now lives as a recluse in, I presume, Russia based on some of the game's artwork. His only real companion nowadays is his neighbour, and even then they don't see one another very often. One day, while the neighbour is visiting to check up on you, he warns you of an incoming solar event and encourages you to let people in to shelter from the dangers of the sun. He also explains how this event has caused visitors to rise from the ground. These visitors are hostile and will attempt to pass themselves off as regular people, but will eventually start killing people in the house with them. Your neighbour also warns you about anyone asking you if you are alone in the house and for you to always respond that you are not, which acts as another reason why you should let other people in. Your neighbour leaves you with some beer and heads back home to his family, and your nights for survival begin. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I do like the gameplay loop. As night falls, you find yourself answering the door as people knock on it. The people outside explain their circumstances and you can choose to let them in or not. On some days you may have the pale visitor at the door, a member of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, to take people from your home to test them, and other guests providing either cryptic clues or even wanting you to prove that you aren't a visitor yourself. During the night you can also look out the window to see how humanity is holding up while the sun's scorching during the day. During the day, you can talk with your guests to get to know them better, watch TV to get clues on how to spot a visitor, make phone calls from numbers that you obtain by speaking with guests or watching TV, which provides you with some more lore around certain characters, allow you to see what can ruin tests to see if you're a visitor, or order items to make your time in the game more manageable. As guests take up space in your home, you'll find that some of them may know one another and may even refuse to come in unless a certain guest is kicked out, which is a clever way of not allowing two guests that occupy the same spot to coexist. Of course, you can also test your guests to see who could be a potential visitor, and once you make that confirmation, well, let's say a good visitor is a dead visitor, and just to be sure, you'll shoot them. Just be careful though, not everyone is a visitor, and signs can be coincidental, so you may even shoot an innocent person by mistake. While the game does have a few guaranteed humans and visitors, a majority of them are randomised, so someone who may be innocent in one run could well be a visitor in another, and your only sign that there's a visitor in your house is that someone in the house will randomly die. The game will tell you, and they'll appear as trash bags in the room that they once stayed in. You only have a few opportunities to test each day too, so you need to make sure that your testing counts. I also found that as you walk past the rooms during the night, you can hear some of your guests, which I thought was a pretty good use of sound design. I found the gameplay loop to be enjoyable, and it heavily encourages multiple playthroughs as the game features multiple endings depending on what you do during the nights. I also liked the cat. The game's story, while vague, was something I enjoyed too. I did like looking out the windows at night to get an idea of what might be happening outside, as well as watching the TV and listening to the game's radio. The vague nature of the game definitely adds to the mistrust factor, and it really does have you questioning whether the official response to the crisis is the right one or not. As I mentioned earlier, getting to know your guests better by talking to them during the day was also something that I liked, as it provided a little bit of background as to what they did before the solar event and how they're going to survive going forward. And it gives those characters a sense of humanity, which does make pulling the trigger on them after finding out if they are a visitor, or not, just a little more impactful. The game's soundtrack was something I also really liked. The music has a nostalgic, upbeat tune during the day which sounds like something you would hear on an old radio, while during the night, it's a slowed down version, and as you progress through the game, the night version slows down more and more until that once upbeat and chill tune becomes a former shell of itself. I think it works really well in building atmosphere and symbolising the collapse of humanity as the game goes on, as the tune slowly gives off more of an air of dread. There is an alternate day tune which is also complemented with its slowed down night variant as well, and certain guests also have their own tunes when they visit, which does add some variety to the game. I've talked about what I've enjoyed about this game, so let's look at what I didn't like in the bad. The random nature of the game I feel works not just in its favour, but also against it, especially if you plan to go for certain endings because some of them require specific instructions. For example, during one of your playthroughs, you're visited by a man in cult robes who has taken a liking to your house and has 3 cultists take up residence, whether you like it or not. One of the endings requires you to keep those 3 cultists alive for several days, and with visitors killing off random people in your house, and FEMA taking them away, this can be easier said than done. Thankfully, you do have the ability to control who FEMA takes away, providing you use their forms sparingly, as anyone given a FEMA form is guaranteed to be taken away during their next visit for testing. But making sure the cultists stay alive and not killed by a visitor you've unknowingly let in puts you at the mercy of the game. Thankfully, there are ways to prevent this, such as saving by drinking kombucha and hoping they don't die, or by feeding the cat, if you'd let it in, cat food. If you're looking at achievement hunting, the random nature works even more against you, as you may not even have the appropriate guest appear on your doorstep at all during your current or future runs, and ironically, the cultists I mentioned earlier can also potentially ruin it. This is less of a problem when playing the game for the first time, but can drag on if you're looking at wanting to see all the different endings as well as interactions, as replays start to feel less like a new experience and more of a chore. Other than that, there isn't much else for me to complain about, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. No, I'm Not a Human has some pretty good ideas, but also some pretty mixed execution. The initial gameplay loop is pretty good, but you'll find yourself at the mercy of the game's random elements if you're planning to be a completionist at the game in repeat playthroughs. The game's story and music did build the atmosphere really well, and it goes to show that a game with horror elements doesn't need to rely on jump scares to make you feel uneasy if the atmosphere is handled effectively. I did ultimately enjoy playing through the game and getting the endings I got, and if you enjoy psychological horrors, then this game is worth taking a look at. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give No, I'm Not a Human a cat out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. You can check out our other videos or follow us on X, Instagram and Facebook. Once again, thank you for watching.